our people, but a recognition in Washington that our future is tied to India's success, and India's success is tied to ours.
Welcome everyone, thanks for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Just days after new parliament was inaugurated, a fresh debate over Lok Sabha seats themselves has sparked off. A delimitation exercise is scheduled to take place in 2026. This will lead to big increase in Lok Sabha seats as India's population has increased since the last census in 2001. Political leaders from southern states are now worried that the delimitation exercise will lead to discrimination as population in northern states has jumped more compared to states in the southern part of India. They believe that South India is being punished for following the national policy for controlling population and despite greater contribution towards the country's GDP. According to delimitation, a Lok Sabha MP should have a population of about 26.3 lakh people under them. So in states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, where density of population is high, the Lok Sabha seats will naturally increase and quite significantly. While it would have a little to no impact on southern states as their population hasn't increased that much, and we'll give you more details on that. From 2029 Lok Sabha polls, there might be proportionally less representatives from southern India in parliament than northern India. The Lok Sabha seats haven't been changed since 1973 when population was just 55 crores. Now we are over 1.4 billion strong and Lok Sabha seats naturally have to be adjusted to give proper representation to the populace. So what's the solution here? If delimitation is not to be done on the basis of population alone, then can boundaries of a constituency be decided in any other fashion? Or is there also an element of paranoia that is being spread on this issue by opposition parties on the lines of the North-South divide as well? We'll take those questions to our guests in just a bit. Take a look at what non-BJP parties ruling South India have to say. We begin with the BRS. The KT Rama has said that the delimitation based on population would be gross injustice to them. Asaduddin Owaisi, who also comes from the same state, has said that we cannot penalize states which are controlling population. A. Saravanan of the DMK in Tamil Nadu says will surely oppose delimitation based on population. Thomas Isaac of the CPIM is saying this delimitation done in this fashion will penalize states which have complied with the national policy, that is of keeping population in check. Priyanka Khadge of the Congress that has just come to power in Karnataka has also chimed in. He has said that he supports what is being said by some of the other southern states and they will be punished for controlling population if the exercise is done on the basis of this metrics. Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi of the BJP has said that the opposition is confused and they are confusing others as well. Let me also explain what is delimitation exactly and how is it done. So basically this is a process of fixing boundaries of a constituency depending on population. Each constituency is supposed to have a similar number of voters across India. The Delimitation Commission carries out this process. The orders of this panel cannot be questioned in a court. In fact, order copies are laid before Parliament and assemblies, but Parliament assemblies and the state assemblies are also not allowed to modify this order. This order comes into force on a date that is specified by the President then. Let's take a look at history of delimitation in India. The first delimitation exercise post-independence was done in 1952. India was divided into 494 Lok Sabha seats then. Then in 1963, another exercise was done for the first time since the reorganization of the states was done. Lok Sabha seats then were increased to 522. 1973, Lok Sabha seats were hiked to 543 due to population surge. Assembly seats were increased from 3,771 to 3,997. And finally, in 2002, number of Lok Sabha seats was left unchanged. By this time, there were voices that were coming up that suggested that we have to be careful with how we do the delimitation exercise for Lok Sabha. But assembly seats were once again increased, this time from 3,997 to 4,123. And then there was a freeze put on a further delimitation exercise till 2026. So take a look first at how the Lok Sabha of the country could look post-2026 delimitation if it happens. Currently, there are 543 seats in the Lok Sabha. The projection is that 2026 onwards, there could be as many as 846 seats. This is via one assessment. Some assessments differ a little bit here and there. So why are southern states worried? Take a look at how delimitation could change Lok Sabha seats for some of the northern states there. UP could see an increase from 80 to 146, while other states like Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh could also see almost a doubling of their Lok Sabha share. Meanwhile, the increase for southern states could be lesser. Tamil Nadu could see an increase from 39 to 49, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh from 42 to 54 collectively, Karnataka from 28 to 41, and Kerala, in fact, could be static. So the big debate that's coming up as the delimitation exercise is hovering as far as the politics of the country is concerned. Is there a genuine concern on the basis of the population metrics, or is there also an element of paranoia being spread once again to create a divide?
I think one has to be very, very careful when one changes the representative structure of a country. These things should not be done flippantly.
This concern has been voiced from last 5 years that you cannot penalize those states which have controlled the population.
This delimitation, this purported delimitation exercise, which may or may not take place in 2026, if that happens, ensures that the states which have not adhered to this population control measure, who have not contributed to the economic growth of the country, will stand benefited.
Delimitation purely based on population is going to be quite an injustice for the southern state. There will be a sense of unfairness in this entire scheme of things.
डिलिमिटेशन कोई सरकार नहीं करती, डिलिमिटेशन कमीशन होता है। उस डिलिमिटेशन कमीशन में सभी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज जो है वो अपनी बातें भी कहते हैं, उनके रिप्रेजेंटेटिव भी अलग अलग रूपों में होते हैं। इसमें कंफ्यूज होने की जरूरत, ना खुद कंफ्यूज हो और ना किसी को कंफ्यूज करें।
Let's go across to the guests joining us. Tuhin Sinha from the BJP, A. Sarvanan from the DMK, Revula Sridhar Reddy is from the BRS, and R. Rajagopalan, a senior journalist, also joining us. Let me go across to Mr. Reddy first up. Your party has been one of the first ones to vehemently oppose this. So what is the solution according to you? If there is a population increase differential between north and south, but delimitation is traditionally done on the basis of population alone, because it is fundamentally about how many people a certain MP represents, then what else can be done?
What else can be done? That has to be discussed and debated across the country, and there should be a debate on that. Otherwise, what happens is those states, especially the southern states, who have controlled the population growth and strictly followed the centrist guideline in controlling the population, will suffer. And those states which have not followed the center's guidelines in the past will get benefited. Like now, Uttar Pradesh, we just have was saying from 82, they will go to a big number, and Bihar, these kind of populous states will get bigger number. Automatically, will have a major share in terms of various other factors also in the days to come. Whether it is wealth distribution, rather funds and aid and grant from this center, there are many other things which automatically get influenced in the days to come. So our concern is in the population of southern states is 18% of the total country now, and we contribute 35% to the national security. But when it comes to the support from the center, it is vice versa.
No, but sir, the issue of funds, or how much you get from the center is slightly different. Let me just focus on the delimitation issue first. Doesn't the debate become moot if there is no alternative on the table?
The alternative will definitely come. Simple, if you don't do it on the population basis, or if it is population, adhere a process or fix a criteria in a way that the southern states will not get suffered.
But how will that happen?
You can
every constituent and the constituency in a country has the right to have equal representation. One MP cannot have a greater load than the other MP. So there has to be, either you dump the idea of a population delimitation completely, or there has to be an alternative.
State should have, can you say that every state should have the same number of population. Telangana has 4 crores of population. Andhra Pradesh 7 crores.
No,
Uttar
no, of
Pradesh,
course not.
20 crores.
Every state doesn't have even the same land area.
what
So
I'm
the
trying to tell
question
you.
of a population
That is
symmetry
what
is
I'm
not
telling you.
possible.
There are many things in this country to be debated now, especially in the representation. It is also the right of southern India, people of southern part of the country should have a proper representation in the parliament. Now it is just not the number. What happens is the southern, northern, south-north divide might come because they will have more representation. Automatically, you can understand what will follow. So our concern is very
but
clear.
I understand your concern, and at one level the concern is justified that states that have lower population, which we ideally want to achieve, should not suffer in the process. But what is the alternative? Let me give A. Saravanan from the DMK an opportunity also. Is there an alternative available?
Yeah. See, this is what we are talking is now just a probability. It will become a possibility only if the BJP wins 2024. It is because it's only the BJP which will want to do what it wants to do in 2026.
Why is that? Why is delimitation a political issue?
I'm coming to it. Coming to it. See, the BJP has we have recently inaugurated a big, huge parliamentary complex, and the Prime Minister was quoted that it can accommodate almost around more than 800 people.
Yes.
If it is not on their minds, why will the Prime Minister talk about 800 MPs? If the delimitation was not there on the minds, or is
but
it
sir,
not
the
there on the
delimitation has been done in the past by all governments, and it was always supposed to happen post 2026.
Yes.
We need to plan ahead.
Yes, I'm coming to it.
Yeah.
See, when the constitution was framed, this delimitation based on population, nobody would imagine the issue of population creating such a havoc. Nobody would have thought that the southern states will listen to the central government's policies, they will reduce the population, they will contribute to the growth of the country, they will contribute to the growth of the economy, whereas the northern states, they will not listen to it. They will not follow the policy guidelines of the union government. They will drag the country economically, they'll drag the resources of the country. Nobody thought this will happen, but this had happened.
So what's the alternative?
So there has to be an innovative solution. See, first things first. This will become a possibility only if BJP comes back to power in 2024.
So you're saying other parties are not interested in doing this exercise? You're saying other parties are not interested in doing this exercise?
Absolutely, nobody will do it. Absolutely nobody will do it because nobody stands to gain by this except the BJP. BJP is a Hindi hegemony party, Hindi majoritarian party, which thinks if it can boost its growth, boost the number of seats in Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and other places, just pander to them. We are through. We can perpetually rule the country. See,
but you know, it is also true that it was a BJP Prime Minister, like Prime Minister from the BJP, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, under whom the last delimitation was done, where Lok Sabha seats were not touched. Only assembly seats were touched. And it was under his regime that it was put on freeze till 2026. So what you're suggesting may not be correct.
Yeah, because Mr. Vajpayee was a gentleman. He was a statesman. I don't want to say anything more on that. So let us not compare Vajpayee with anybody else. The question is this. It's a moot point now. But if you ask me whether there are possible solutions, yes, they should not touch it. It should be frozen. Because
but sir, okay, I take your point. Do you have some other mechanism by which there can be equitable representation for a certain amount of population?
Yes, it's not as though we don't have any examples.
Right.
We have the American example. We have the American electoral college system where all the states, irrespective of the population, have a fixed number of representation at the federal government. So if it is not frozen, then they should come out with something else. So it's a moot point now. Let's discuss this. If the BJP comes back to power in 2024,
then you will look at alternatives. Okay, let the BJP's Tohin Sinha respond. One, what do you make of the concern that some of the southern states are raising, and aren't they justified in doing so? And the second point that DMK is raising, that actually you have some vested interest in doing this because you are the only ones who stand to gain from this.
Well, good evening, Shivani. Good evening, everybody. I'm sure you also realize by now that the opposition politics is mired in victimhood and hypocrisy and ignorance and also rank parochialism. You know, throughout the world, the delimitation or the demarcation of a constituency is based on population. And the same applies to India. Number two, where does this distinction between North and South India arise? I mean, for people like us who believe in Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, if you land at the Hyderabad airport or the Chennai airport, do you ever see a board, welcome to South India? So these people need to grow out of the parochial mindset. You know, there is still some time for delimitation. We will cross the bridge when we come to it, but it is being done with the best of intentions. The intention is to usher in democracy 2.0. Imagine 60% increase in seats. Right now, the biggest constituency in terms of population is in Telangana, is in South. All of these constituencies, if they have an equal population, it would be good from the point of view of administration. But dynastic parties would have a problem because ultimately, they always fear power slipping out of their hands.
No. Answer the question about the population differential and how the representation of South Indian states that have kept their population, at a certain level, at a controlled level, stand to lose if it was done purely on the basis of population alone.
I have a fundamental issue with this distinction between North and South India. I grew up in East India, I stay in West India, I keep traveling to North India. For me, the whole country is one.
Fair enough. Let's say it is not about North or South India. I also don't agree with that distinction. But different states have their concerns. State concerns are still valid.
So Assam will also have its concerns. Assam is a BJP stronghold. If you look at the figures, Assam is also likely to lose its weightage by a certain percentage. So are we cribbing? Northeast is going to lose today. Northeast is a stronghold of BJP. So, I mean, some people, some states gain, some states lose, but eventually at the end of the day, the intention is better administration across the country.
Okay, Mr. Reddy, that's a fundamental point. You look at the representation of Northeast India. It is very marginal in comparison to any other part of the country, even today. So how is it that is okay, but if your seats don't go up by the same margin, then it becomes a problem and it becomes unfair?
We didn't say that it will be okay. Northeast India,
but
South
it has
India,
been the case
North
so
India,
far.
We also have the same feel. Why do you think that we are thinking differently? But here the point from South India, it is coming that if you are doing it only on the population grounds, you are forgetting the basic point. What we are trying to argue. Since we have properly adapted the practice of controlling the population based on the successive central government's advice or instructions, whatever it is, now we are going to lose. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yes.
Why don't you think, supposing the population of 18% is delivering 35% of the national GDP, then it also should be in the proportionate of population, right? Why it is higher, double than what we are. So the point here is, for the discipline, we will be penalized. That is what we are actually asking. And we want all these South Indian states to raise this. We are not trying to create an issue out here. We are only trying to, make them understand, boss, this is the problem.
Okay.
Now, those political parties, this will bring in many issues tomorrow. There will be many disparities in the days to come.
Okay. R. Rajagopalan, let him come in. He hasn't spoken yet. R. Rajagopalan, is there some sense of paranoia being spread? Because I remember when the talk of delimitation in Jammu and Kashmir was being talked about, there too Kashmir-based parties raised a stink, saying that, our share will go down and we stand to lose. Eventually, when the contours of the delimitation came out, it came out that actually no one region is losing out. So this parochialism and paranoia based on that parochialism, that because we've had a certain amount of share, we should always have a certain amount of share.
Shivani, you said it very aptly. You put it in a very cogent way. Apart from that, my understanding. In this panel, I am the only one person who has seen 3 delimitation commissions. I reported it. It is a legal issue. It is a constitutional issue. Now it has been a political issue. The reason being, all paranoia, all political problems or parochialism is because of the family dynasty parties. In southern states, out of 6, only 3 or 4 dynasty politics is taking shape. there is no national party presence in South states, especially in Congress ruled Karnataka. When the time nearer, even the DMK representative conceded that in 2024 Narendra Modi is returning to power. So
No, I don't think he did
once
that.
it comes to power, my understanding is that it is a paranoia created by the regional parties, state parties, dynasty parties. That is the reason the Election Commission will definitely bring in an all-party meeting before the Delimitation Commission is announced.
1 second, Mr. Reddy, I'm
Let
coming
the
to you.
regional parties represent before the Election Commission and present their views. Let us see how the national view is taken. It is going to be an issue in 2024 and 2025. As we cross the bridge, let us cross the bridge as we approach it. It is too early to speak because it is a very sensitive subject. My understanding is the dynasty parties will lose their control. That is why they are jumping and kicking up.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Reddy, you want to respond? Yes, Mr. Saravanan, I'll give you an opportunity. Mr. Reddy first.
See, just terming it as paranoia is a wrong projection. It is not that case. If representing the feeling of the people is paranoia, then you can term it. You are now, even this discussion is going in a different direction. The people who are against this, we are representing the feeling of South Indian people. Now, we are questioning actually the injustice that is going to be meted out.
Okay.
How can it be? And where is the question of you say that dynasty parties, rather regional parties, we are elected by our people. We are not nominated by central government or Narendra Modi. If it is DMK, people of Tamil Nadu has given them mandate.
Fair
if
enough.
it is BRS party, twice we got elected by a popular mandate by our people, and we represent our people.
Okay, but I think what he's suggesting I think what Mr. Rajagopalan is suggesting it, and he can clarify on this, is that there is a lack of what needs to be done nationally as a country, and there is more a parochial view of what is more important for my state and my state alone. Yes, Mr. Saravanan, is that what's happening?
Federal structure respecting the federal structure of this country.
It's not a parochial view.
Okay.
It's not a parochial view. This view is based on nation. This view is based on the nation's interest. The BJP is the party which does not have the nation's interest at its heart. Its only interest is to promote upper caste Hindus. That is the one.
But you're bringing in chaste politics into this. You're bringing your DMK versus BJP politics into an issue that is not based on that politics alone.
I'm speaking about it. I'm coming about it. See, DMK, he has put it very rightly when a certain amount of states which contribute for a large number of economic growth, for the large amount of the GDP, and you want to penalize them. You don't want to take their interest. Their interests are paramount for the growth of the nation. If the BJP wants to play politics and to pander only to Hindi-speaking population and to upper caste Hindus alone, then it is not good.
No, I'm sorry. North India is not just upper caste Hindus alone. I object to that kind of caste distinction being brought in. No, I'm sorry. Mr. Saravanan, every issue is not an issue for you to bash caste.
Allow me to speak.
I allowed you to speak. But I'm not going to allow you to turn this debate into an anti-caste rhetoric. All of North India is not just high caste, upper caste Hindus.
North India. See, I was not talking about North India. I was talking
no,
about
you
BJP.
did. You said North India, Hindi hegemony. What else does that mean?
What?
You said Hindi heartland. What else does that mean?
Hindi hegemony.
Yeah.
BJP is known for that. BJP is known for that.
Yeah, so you're talking about Northern India only. Northern India, parts of West and parts of East India.
Yeah, so I'm talking about BJP. I'm not talking about anything else. See, that
okay, so don't bring caste into it. I'm only saying that. All of your rest of your points taken. Yes, Tuhin, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, let me speak. I'm not finished yet.
Okay, yes, okay. Mr. Saravanan, I'll give you 30 seconds. Please finish in that.
Yes.
Then Tuhin.
Yes. Mr. Jaisha is the shining example of nepotism and dynasty politics. Let all the BJP cronies speak about that first. Then let them speak about the dynasty of the other places.
Okay, Mr. Tuhin Sinha.
The DMK spokesperson has only vindicated my opening comment, my opening remark that their politics is based on victimhood and ignorance. We got 3 opportunities to elect a president for the country. On one occasion, we went for a Muslim president. On another occasion, scheduled caste president. On another occasion, scheduled tribe president. And these people blame us for being a Brahminical party. That shows their ignorance. They probably don't even know what a Brahman is and what a scheduled caste, scheduled tribe person is. Now, coming back to the the moot question, whether it is the EVM or this issue, the opposition keeps hallucinating problems where there are none, which only shows their lack of confidence. They can't fight us on merit. I'm challenging them, fight us on merit in 2024. Don't just hallucinate issues when there are none.
That is what actually we are trying to question.
With merit.
Shivani.
Yes.
You have ruined the country for the
Shivani,
last
Shivani,
years.
I want to come in here. Shivani.
Yeah, okay, one by one. I cannot have all of you speaking at the same time. Mr. Rajagopalan wants to come in. Mr. Reddy, just give me a couple of minutes. Mr. Rajagopalan, if indeed there is a population differential, could there be some other solution that can be worked out? Where a certain number of seats is given to each state. Yes, UP, Bihar naturally will have more, but the others also have some sort of a proportional representation.
Shivani, for every problem, there is a solution. But the opposition is making solution itself is a problem for the country. Apart from that, census has to be taken. A second thing, my understanding of this is when a problem like GST can be resolved by the parliament, this delimitation can also be resolved. And there is no upper caste or hegemony or anything in this. My understanding is if Jay Shah is very crony, why should DMK minister prostrate before Jay Shah? He is also a BCC member. DMK is also in the cricket board. So let us not divert that.
Yeah, let's not divert into that issue. I'm running out of time. Mr. Reddy, I only have 20 seconds left. Mr. Reddy, 20 seconds left. Is there some solution or alternate solution you will float so that all parties can drive some consensus on it? 20 seconds only.
Like that. There needs to be a debate. Our only concern is that the South Indian states should not suffer. They should not be penalized. They should not lose what they are supposed to get just because they have controlled the population.
Okay, all right. I have to leave it on that note.
Just because somebody has not followed the central government directives, they will just get it.
Okay, I leave it at that. I just feel that this issue will be better served if it is purely about states' concerns, and surely concerns that have controlled population or have low population growth rate, then a BJP versus the rest issue. That will not serve this issue. I leave it at that. I do thank our guests for joining us. Moving on, it's been 9 years of the Narendra Modi government at the centre. A Morgan Stanley report has now hailed India's growth during his term. The report specifically assessed last 9 years under the Modi government and compared it with growth even under the UPA. They have highlighted 10 big transformations under Modi government. They've come to a conclusion that India's infrastructure has changed drastically. There has been a significant increase in the number of digital transactions, for example, and electrification of the railways route. First, let's take a look at the top highlights of that report. Today's India is different from what it was in 2013. That's really one of the punching statements of this report. In 10 years, India has gained positions in the world order. India will emerge as a key driver for Asia and global growth. GDP productivity growth differentials to swing in India's favor. And it also goes on to say that New India, this is a term, remember, the BJP uses, will drive a fifth of global growth through the decade. They have predicted a boom in India's economy in this decade, but that was subjected to a few risks as well, which is interesting. A global recession that can impact India's economy and growth, a fragmented outcome in 2024 general elections, and that's going to be our focus as well. It has also talked about the fact that predictions will fail if there's a sharp rise in commodity prices due to supply outages, some of which we've witnessed recently, and shortages in skilled labor supply is also a risk for India. Out of this, what has caught everyone's eye is, of course, the mention of a fragmented vote or mandate in 2024. So is a clear mandate a key for India's growth? Let's go across to the guests who are joining us. Santosh Mehrotra and Vijay Sadana, both economists on the show. Vijay Sadana, let me begin with you. How do you look at this report that is clearly one, if I begin at the very top, talking about the big transformation under Narendra Modi Sarkar? And while it is not a matter of much debate, I think one of the fundamental things that have improved, especially in the last 5 years or in this term of the Modi government, is also big ticket infrastructure. And that has been acknowledged and talked about in this report.
Yeah, first of all, good evening to all of you. This is true. Not only the physical infrastructure, but also the delivery infrastructure. What we have seen is various roads, highways and everything, airports, ports, anywhere you go to the country, they all are visible development changes. At the same time, we have seen how this whole delivery system through Digital India, whether it is transferring money to farmers, poor, ladies, different accounts, that's another IT infrastructure or backbone in the country, which is making a whole lot of difference. So no doubt, things have improved. Another area which we have to look at is also the amount of AIIMS and other institutions which are under development and already in places. Tourist infrastructure, which is also attracting a lot of tourism in the country. So overall, definitely there is an improvement. Whatever we say that things have not improved or whatever, but I think the visible evidence is what report says is definitely an acknowledgement of the development which is taking place in the last so many years.
Before I come to the political aspect that this report has touched in, it has said that one of the key risks to this projection is a fragmented mandate in 2024, putting the spotlight on the next general elections. Mr. Mehrotra, your opening comments on the report itself. Very clearly, it has given a thumbs up and a stamp of approval on the economic aspects of the Narendra Modi government and how it says that India of 2023 is not the India of 2013.
Is not the India of?
2013.
Yeah, it's not the same India. 10 years have passed. But let's just remember what the job of a investment banking organization, an international investment banker like Morgan Stanley is. Its whole objective is to try and make India appealing to foreign investors. So it has no choice but to put a positive spin on everything. Other than the infrastructure investment having gone up, and infrastructure delivery having gone up, I can point to you 10 problems with this report. And if you don't mind, I will begin straight away. So its first slide is about supply side policy reforms, about corporate tax rates now down to 23%. And of course, in the case of new investments, it's down to 15%. So clearly, corporate tax revenues have actually fallen. They have fallen by 1.4 lakh crores per annum. So while another part of the report talks about formalization and GST increasing, the fact of the matter is when you take into account both direct taxes as well as indirect taxes, meaning corporate as well as GST, the tax to GDP ratio has not risen at all.
But isn't a decreasing corporate rate a fundamentally pro-growth and pro-corporate sector demand that was coming from the corporate sector as well?
A demand coming from the corporate sector has not necessarily translated into an increase in private investment to GDP. The investment that has increased is on account of public investment, which is what I began by talking about, which is infrastructure. In addition...
All right, I get your point. You're saying that everything is not rosy, but I don't know if anybody is suggesting that. But you're suggesting that, this report is because it wants to sell India. The reality is that all reports in the past were not trying to sell India when the product wasn't good. You can only sell when the product is good. And there is, of course, several other parameters or other reports by which India is emerging as the bright spot, even in a tough economical aspect. But I want to focus on the issue of mandates. Vijay Sadana, what this report is also highlighting is possibly continuity and stability in government, especially in a country like India at the central level, is key to continued rate of growth.
This is true. They see one of the bigger challenge around the world is that when the government or the policymakers change or guards change at the policy making level, there was a disruption in policy continuity or stable policy environment. That is why you remember when the WTO came into existence, one of the major agenda of WTO around the world was that there has to be a stability and predictability for the investors and the investment community so that their investment should not go waste. And there is a need to have a reduced political risk. Definitely, this is one of the risks always there in the economy, in especially democratic setup. But by and large, I don't think that any government which will come in power will make a drastic U-turn on any of the development policies. Yes, priorities may change. That is one aspect we have to factor in. Whether it was Manmohan Singh government, after that Modi government, I think the country's some of the major policies remain in the growth phase.
Okay, but what about
Yes,
a fractured mandate? A fractured mandate, and that is the message. And I think that's the message that suits.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah, that suits obviously the incumbent in this case. While what we see in Indian politics today is a lot of opposition parties wanting to come together, what this report is suggesting is, anything that falls short of a majority could bring down the rate of growth.
Absolutely, because many of the smaller party, when they form a group of so-called coalition government, they all are short-sighted because their question of existence is always there. And the only way for existence of directionless political parties, freebies, or giving some sort of a distorted benefit to the voters oblique citizens. So there is always a threat of coalition government derailing the development path. But if there is an absolute majority, I think there will be policy stability. This remains as a risk in any democratic system.
Yes, Mr. Mehrotra, your thoughts on this? How election mandates and the rate of growth or the trajectory of India's growth has been linked in this report?
Well, an investment banker shouldn't stray into areas in which they have absolutely zero expertise. So let me present to you the data which is completely counter to what the report is suggesting. The coalition government from 2004 to 14 was, by definition, a coalition government. And yet, they experienced 8% per annum GDP growth. Never since 2014 has this country on a consistent basis produced 8% growth pre-COVID. Forget since COVID. Since COVID, it's 2.5%. So honestly, they shouldn't be straying into areas in which, they have no expertise. In any case, most of this report is written by credit analysts and not by economists. There are a couple of economists in the team. Let me go back to the report itself.
Sir, I have limited time. 30 seconds, please.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
It makes one of the 5 points it makes, which is a great achievement in the last 9 years, is about the IBC, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the impaired loan ratio at a 12-year low. Well, how has this come about? It's come about because this government has decided to solve matters through the IBC by writing off 87% of all the loans. That's how banks have managed to reduce their gross NPAs to total advances. So is this the way forward?
Okay.
No one in the banking sector who's assessing this situation is actually believes that that's the case.
Okay, sir, I've got limited time. Let me give 30 seconds final comments to Mr. Sardana as well. Your final comments on whether this report is truly reflecting India correctly.
This report definitely highlights a positive opinion about India, whether for investors or those who are looking at India as a destination. There is always a scope for improvement, and that is where the role of policymakers and parliament is, that how to reduce the risk and how to improve the positive environment for the investor and the growth trajectory. I think this report is nothing except that precisely what India wants to do. And anything which is negative is a responsibility of policymakers to take corrective actions, reduce the risk so that investors' confidence goes up.
Okay.
Otherwise, why you need government if you cannot reduce the risk for investors? So that is what one has to look at it.
All right, I'll leave it at that. I do thank both of you for joining us. This is certainly going to be a report that is going to be talked about as far as, you know, what has happened in the last 9 years in comparison to the previous 10 years and what can be looked forward to. I'll slip into a very short break right now. On the other side, we also have a very special story for you. Remember, there is a panel that is going to review the progress of the Cheetah project at the Kuno National Park after 3 cubs and 3 adult cheetahs have lost their lives. Stay tuned, we'll get you more on this.
Also, Pallavi, during his speech, Rahul Gandhi also attacked, saying that the centre has failed to address issues of people's interest like unemployment and is instead spreading hatred in the country.
So that again has been the common line really of Rahul Gandhi, that, you know, and he took an attack on the fact that what is being portrayed in a country is not the real picture. He talked about the fact that how agencies were rampantly used, you know, misused, the compromise of the institutions. The media, for example, also distorts the picture. And the real core issues are, for example, price rise, the lack of jobs. And, you know, I think that thinking within the Congress party in the last couple of meetings which they've been having on Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan is to what they call replicate the Karnataka as well as the Himachal model. Not to focus on any other issue which will be seen as diversion, but to focus on what is considered to be the real issues. In Karnataka and Himachal, the Congress party thinks it's worked, focusing on local issues, focusing on issues which matter to the people of India, which is why as a part of that strategy, you will be seeing, and in the next couple of weeks, you also will be seeing more and more of it, Rahul Gandhi interacting with students, gig workers, truckers, so on and so forth, only to make the point that the Congress is trying to connect and address and also reflect the real issues, unlike the BJP, which wants to divert attention by talking about, you know, new parliament buildings, Sengol, religion, and so on and so forth.
Now, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, who is on a 10-day visit to United States, during a speech in San Francisco, he slammed the Modi government over issues of minorities. Rahul claimed that minorities feel unsafe in India. He said, and I quote, "It is felt most strongly by Muslim community because it's done most directly to them, but it's done to other minority communities as well. I can guarantee you that the Sikhs, Dalits and Christian and tribal community are feeling the same thing." So Rahul Gandhi is in United States and he has slammed the Modi government over issues of minorities. He has claimed that minorities feel unsafe in India, and he has said that this is felt most strongly by the Muslim community, but it's also felt by other minority communities. Let's listen in to what Rahul Gandhi said.
This happens periodically in India. What is happening, for example, to the Muslim community in India today happened to the Dalit community in the 80s. If you went to UP in the 80s, the Dalit community, what is happening with the Muslims was happening with the Dalits there. So periodically this type of stuff happens and we have to challenge it, we have to fight it, and we have to fight it with affection.
Our senior editor Pallavi Ghosh is joining us. Pallavi, so Rahul Gandhi has yet again targeted the central government, saying that the minorities are under attack in India and they are being treated the same way as Dalits were being treated in Uttar Pradesh in the 80s.
And it's become a pattern whenever Rahul Gandhi goes abroad, and the whole idea of these interactions is essentially to make the point that all is not well in our country. You know, whether he went to UK earlier, whether he went to in the next couple of meetings, and there's some big bag ones lined up in Washington, New York, San Francisco, he's going to be making the same point, and he's going to keep the focus on the Bharat Jodo Yatra. In fact, he began his speech today by mentioning the fact that despite all kind of pressures coming in from the agencies and an attempt being made by the BJP plus the RSS to silence the people, he was undaunted. And of course, the whole issue about it being a selective democracy. there's an attempt, and he used these words, and he's likely to use these words also, that how the minority community, a specific community, are always targeted, and there's no place for them in our country because this government does not care for them. All the government cares for is the particular religion, which is the Hindus, and therefore they're very selective in the kind of patronage or the kind of support that they give. This, of course, is expected and likely to blow up into yet another controversy, as usually Rahul Gandhi's foreign trips are, where the BJP is going to completely reject it. But I think this is the line which has been taken now by the Congress party for 2024 and also the upcoming state elections, that a vote for the BJP means a vote for a divisive country.
Right, Pallavi, please stay with us. We'll once again listen in to what Rahul Gandhi said about the minority communities in India.
Nafrat ke bazaar mein mohabbat ki dukaan. That is the best way I can say it, which is that it is felt most strongly by the Muslim community, okay, because it is done most directly to them. But in fact, it is being done to all minorities. I can guarantee you that the same way you are feeling attacked, I can guarantee you my Sikh brothers are feeling the same thing. This happens periodically in India. What is happening, for example, to the Muslim community in India today happened to the Dalit community in the 80s. If you went to UP in the 80s, the Dalit community, what is happening with the Muslims was happening with the Dalits there. So periodically this type of stuff happens and we have to challenge it, we have to fight it, and we have to fight it with affection.
Coming back to you, Pallavi, so we remember that Rahul Gandhi faced massive backlash for the comments he made in the UK on Indian democracy. And as per reports, his aide Praveen Chakravarti had claimed that Indian democracy is not on the agenda of his visit to US this time. But despite that, we are seeing such statements coming in from the United States made by Rahul Gandhi.
Yeah, but I think Sam Pitroda, the one who heads the IOC, had made it very clear, and this is the point that they have been raising. And look, that the whole purpose of Rahul Gandhi's overseas trips is essentially to bring an awareness among his supporters abroad and to make the point that, things are not going right as far as our country is concerned. Over the next few days, he's going to have visits with NRI, celebrities. There are going to be politicians as well, their think tank, a large number of young students and professionals, so on and so forth. And the core of his meeting is essentially going to be this, that while the Congress party believes in a politics of taking everyone along, but as far as the BJP...
Welcome back. Union Minister for Forest and Environment Bhupendra Yadav will visit the Kuno National Park soon to assess the progress of Project Cheetah. This comes in the wake of the deaths of 3 adult cheetahs and 3 cubs in the past 2 months. Officers selected from amongst the team involved in the conservation and management of the cheetahs at Kuno will also be sent on a study tour to Namibia and South Africa, from where these cheetahs have been brought in. Since last year, total 20 cheetahs were translocated to Kuno. With 17 adult cheetahs now left, along with a lone surviving cub, the Forest Department has brought all hands on deck to ensure the rest of the population remains safe. CNN News 18 brings you this exclusive ground report.
Six cheetah deaths in just 2 months has put the spotlight back on India's Project Cheetah, which is perhaps facing its toughest time. With only 17 cheetahs now left, along with a lone surviving cub, the Forest Department is working on a war footing to ensure their safety. But the challenge is India's unusual weather cycle.
It's the start of winter in South Africa and a scorching summer here in India, with heat waves prevailing over several parts of the country. When the female Namibian cheetah, Jwala, gave birth to 4 cubs early this year on 29th March, she expected cool winter nights and probably a rainy season. But what she got instead was a harsh summer. And as the Forest Department officials put it, these vulnerable creatures were indeed deceived by the sudden change in the weather cycle here. And it will take at least a year for them to understand the change in the weather here.
से मतलब चीतों के आने की बात से जो है ना मतलब लोगों को एक उम्मीद है कि यहाँ पे भविष्य में मतलब रोजगार के संसाधन बढ़ेंगे और जिससे उनकी आजीविका चलेगी, इसलिए मतलब लोगों में उत्सुकता देखी गई है।
चीता है जब से बहुत बदलाव हुआ है जी, लोगों में बहुत खुशी की है आसपास के क्षेत्र में सब बढ़िया।
तो यहाँ पे किसी ने क्या कभी चीता देखा है बाहर निकलते हुए, कभी किसी को दिखा हो?
बाहर तो नहीं देखा जी, अंदर जरूर हमने देखा है।
All 3 cheetah cubs died of heat stroke, confirms post-mortem report, and the 4th one is said to be stable. One female cheetah went as far as Madhav National Park, almost 45 kilometers away. The forest staff members who went to track her at 3 a.m. on Friday night were beaten up by local villagers who mistook them to be decoys.
जानवर यहाँ पे आते हैं?
Many tourists have thronged the Kuno National Park to see these creatures in the wild, but unfortunately had to return disappointed.
हमको हिरण दिखा है, नील गाय दिखी है, मोर वगैरह दिखी, बस और कुछ नहीं दिखा।
अच्छा, चीता को देखने की उम्मीद जरूर होगी।
उम्मीद लेके आए थे, कुछ और भी जानवर मिलेंगे हम लोग को देखने। बच्चों को लेके आए हम साथ में, दूर-दूर से आए बच्चे हमारे, लेकिन निराशा ही हाथ लगी।
Keep patience and a little bit of hope. Well, that is the message the Forest Department has to give for people tracking Project Cheetah across the country and across the world. As of now, 17 adult cheetahs now remain. 11 of them are in the bomas, while 6 of them have been released into the wild. The condition of the lone cub surviving is now stable.
Let me go across to a special guest who's joining us, Dr. Divya Bhanu Singh, who's a former member of the Cheetah Task Force, a renowned wildlife expert. Let me begin by asking you, how do you look at the reports that are coming in of more and more deaths of the cheetahs or the cubs? Is this a trend that can be stopped, or is this just a bad omen of what is to follow?
Okay, any translocation program you have,
yes,
there would definitely be some kind of mortality. Okay, so this is nothing new in my view. Excuse me. See, the 3 cheetahs that died, one apparently was unwell from the time it came. From, mind you, I'm only telling you from what I read in the newspapers. Okay, I'm not privy to what is actually happening on the ground. So one animal appears to have had a problem even before it came here. The other one, I read in the reports, was bitten by a snake.
Yes.
And the third one, again, as per the newspaper reports, was some kind of internecine aggression, which caused the death of the third. Now, so if these kind of reasons, fine, then this can befall any other cat or any other animal. Now, coming to the cubs, you must appreciate that the cheetah mortality rate of the cubs is very, very high wherever you are, whether it is India or abroad. The cheetah mortality rate of the cubs is pretty high. So I'm not, in that sense, this was not unexpected.
Okay.
At the same time, it is a matter to be concerned about insofar as 3 of the original 20 cheetahs have passed away, and 3 of the 4 cubs that were born in India have passed away.
Yes.
Yet at the same time, certain amount of mortality is bound to take place. Now, what steps can be taken? Frankly, that can only be told by somebody who is on the ground.
Right. And we are expecting that, of course, there will be some of those steps taken after a reassessment is done soon. But there have been many critics of this entire program itself. So would you say that it was foolhardy to even attempt this translocation, to reintroduce the cheetah into the Indian wild?
Most certainly not. I mean, there are a lot of critics who said we shouldn't do this at all. I mean, that if you do not take a risk, you're not going to achieve anything in whatever you do. The issue is that here is a translocation program between 2 developing countries across 2 continents. And therefore, it is, in my opinion, extremely important that this kind of translocations take place in restoring a species which has become extinct. And in this case, the only species of an animal which has become extinct after independence. I don't think it was foolhardy at all.
Okay, but some experts have suggested that, the cheetahs were never really native to India. I'm sure you've heard these comments, and therefore, we shouldn't be really attempting to reintroduce them here.
Look, the cheetahs evolved in South Africa, and from there they radiated out into the rest of the African continent and into Asia. All right, and to say that they were brought in by human beings, are we therefore to believe, and it boggles my mind, that they came up to Iran, took a look at the Indo-Iranian border, there was no Pakistan then, and looked at the black buck and the chinkara and the cheetal and the hare and so on, and said, hey, we don't want to go here, we want to go back to Iran. Is that the statement? Or if that is not the statement, who brought them? Where is the proof? See, cheetahs in India were brought by Indian princes from 1918 onwards to 1947 because cheetahs in India had become extremely rare and were about to become extinct. In my estimation, less than 200 cheetahs came here. There was one report, only one solitary report of a cheetah before that coming into India in 1890. There was one cheetah in the Alipore Zoo, which was from Africa. That besides, there is no report, that is 40 years of my hunting through historical records, there is no report of a single cheetah coming into India from Africa. Now, even if a single cheetah did come in, that does not make a trade. You yourself know very well that cheetahs breed with great difficulty, all right? So how many cheetahs were brought in here so that Emperor Akbar could have 1,000 cheetahs at one point? How many cheetahs were brought in here so that the Tariq-i-Firoz Shahi says that he had so many animals, so many cheetahs and siagosh in his menagerie that people couldn't count? How many cheetahs had to be brought in and bred naturally or artificially in India, of which we have no record whatever, of Someshwara III writing a whole description on how to train cheetahs in the 11th century. I'm sorry, in the 12th century, and how to hunt with them, hunt a black buck with them. So, I mean, this is, in my opinion, totally an absurd proposition, and that is certainly not the reason why we should not bring African cheetahs.
All right, so you're saying that this was not the wrong project to take on. The question on everyone's mind, from the interest of the common public, will be what can be done to make this project successful? Is this the site at Kuno which is the problem because of high heat, as some are suggesting, or the way in which this project is being implemented?
All right. See, cheetahs have lived in the deserts. All right. So I don't think what you call temperature is an issue. Now, the action plan which was worked out very well before the cheetahs were brought in had taken care of all these things. In my opinion, there are three basic points which are integral to the cheetah introduction program. One is that you must have these 20 cheetahs, or now whatever 17 cheetahs that we have left. These cheetahs need to move out not only in Kuno, but as envisaged in the plan itself to other areas. For example, Mukundra is a ready site to go there. If there are any health issues, they can be always looked at and sorted out. That is very important to my way of thinking. Secondly, the other point is to see when you introduce any animal, whether it is cheetah or the lion or the tiger or whatever it is, you have to look at the prey base. Now, if the prey base needed to be augmented, and I think some augmentation needed to be done in Kuno, whether that is taken place or not, I don't know. But if that be the case, then prey base needs to be augmented. Thirdly, the expertise, which we don't have, we need to get from outside. And we had the expertise, we got them from South Africa, Namibia, etc., etc. Now, I do not know whether this expertise is still available to us, but if expertise is required, and if we don't have the expertise, for instance, and I know we don't have the expertise for mass capture and so on, not only of cheetah, but perhaps of of nilgai and black buck. then let us get that expertise from abroad. Now, what I'm saying is these are the integral parts of the successful program. Now, I don't know
whether it's
how much
happening
of
or
it
not
has happened on the ground, because I'm not a member of the team, and I would not go make any statements on the basis of newspaper reports alone. But these are, to my mind, integral part. Have we got the scientific know-how? For instance, we had developed certain scientific know-how. Do we still have it? Because we had the people coming and telling us from South Africa and Namibia.
Yes, yes.
Now, those people, are they still here? Not here? I don't know.
What we are hearing is that some of our members will go to these countries and pick up some of those know-how possibly. Finally, are you hopeful and confident that a project like this can succeed, given the right things are done, as you're mentioning? Or is this project doomed to fail and lead to heartbreak and the understanding that something like this should never be attempted again?
No. Why should it? It's certainly not doomed to failure at all.
Okay.
If what I'm saying, these 2 or 3 issues which are there, and I'm sure these should be looked at, and I'm not sure just where the whole situation is, as I said, because I'm not a member. I'm not aware of what's happening on the ground. But if these kind of issues are taken care of, it would certainly not be a doomed failure. Please try and understand. It took 50 years for Project Tiger to have 3,000 tigers.
Right.
It took 70 years from nearly extinct rhinos, according to the Chief Minister of Assam in 1952, that rhinos are practically extinct in Assam. Today you have 4,000. It has taken 70 years. To protect the lion, the first effort to protect the lion started in 1879. Today, 150 years later, you have something like 700 lions all over Saurashtra. So this is a long haul. What has happened so far is a very small first step in the whole program.
Okay.
Now, the real program begins now. And I see no reason why it should not succeed. Provided, as I said, the various
right things
points
are
that
done.
I've said, which are the integral part of this program, are taken care of.
All right. I leave it at that. Dr. Bhanu Singh, thanks a lot for giving us your thoughts. Let's hope that the project can indeed succeed. With that, it's a wrap on Plain Speak. Thanks a lot for watching.
Hello everyone, you're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria